Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into the next team preview video. I am going to be doing the Washington football team today. Before I get into the video, I do want to apologize. I am a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff, and I totally messed up on my previous Dolphins preview. The defensive projected starters, I forgot to put the background on, or something happened where I completely overlooked it during the editing process, and by the time it was posted on YouTube, I caught it way too late. So I pinned a comment on that channel. So in case anybody wants to look over the projected starters on there, again, I apologize. I definitely will be double checking that stuff before I upload it to YouTube going forward. So now that I got that apology out of the way, I can move on and continue to pump out this content for you guys. So yeah, I'm doing the Washington football team preview today. If this is your first video, kind of give you a quick rundown what you can expect. I'm gonna share my feelings on the head coach Ron Rivera, and then I'll take a look at the remaining cap space, see if they have anything to work with prior to the season. Any players entering a contract year that have been on the team over the over the last couple of years, and then also I'll take a look over their offense, take a look over their defense. And then I give my overall feelings at the end of the episode, and then more specifically on the offense. If when I go over that, I kind of give you my feelings if if I like any of these guys for fantasy football heading into the year. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get this thing rolling. Then Ron Rivera, he's entering his second year as the coach of the Washington football team. The football team, I'm not sure how we're supposed to call it at this point. It has somewhat grown on me. But as far as Ron Rivera, to me, he's one of the the best coaches in the league. When I was surprised, Carolina moved on from him when he did, and look how fast he was able to turn things around in Washington. Now, obviously, he didn't turn things around to make them a winning program. They did finish below 500 last year, but at the end of the day, they fought back and they won the division and made it to the playoffs. Because I remember at the beginning of the year, they started off with a pretty bad record, and Rivera said something like, "No, we're still like competing for the playoffs. We're gonna try to win this division." And I was like, I don't know about that, Ron, because everything was going wrong with them at the beginning of the year. I think injuries were happening, and he proved me wrong. He kept that team fighting throughout the year, and they ended up squeezing out and winning the division, and end up hosting a playoff game. And people forget, with Taylor Heineke at quarterback, they almost upset the Bucks during wild card weekend and almost ruined their chances to go win that Super Bowl. So he's obviously established his culture right away, and he's just going to keep on building this thing. And I'm really excited to see what he brings this year. But by the time he got more of the pieces in place for year three, I think this is definitely a team to watch by the time next year comes around. Now, taking a look at the remaining cap space, they have the fifth most remaining cap space in the league. They are sitting at $19.1 million. They have a lot of room to work with. So if they wanted to go add a bunch of more veterans, add more depth on that defense, which I think they need, if they wanted to go maybe acquire anybody via trade, they have plenty of cap space to work with. And because they're not going to use any of it on their players. If you take a look at the notable players that are entering their contract year that have been on the team for the last couple seasons, Brandon Scherf, that would be the one guy, but he's on the franchise tag, and it's too late to work out an extension. He's playing the year out on that tag, which I really don't understand why they weren't able to work anything out prior to the franchise tag deadline coming to an end. Because he's one of their best players on the offensive line, and they have all that cap space. But I know he's 31, he's getting up there in age, but you just would have thought they would have worked something out, especially since they have so much room to work with right now. And then John Bostic, nope. They could definitely find somebody that can do the job just as he has done. He's a very good very good linebacker against the run, but he definitely is a liability defending the pass. So definitely don't see that happening for Bostic. And then other than that, they don't really have anybody they could offer an extension prior to the season. So yeah, if anybody is out there on the trade block, I would not be surprised if Washington looks to add some more pieces prior to the season. Maybe not big name pieces, but I just think they could use some depth on their defense. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and keep it moving. Taking a look over their offense right now. These are the projected starters from Jack Duspo. You can follow Jack at at Jack_Dispo on Twitter. I've talked him up before. If you watched my previous videos, he's a great analyst. Go give him a follow on Twitter. And I believe this is the last team from the Prospect Encyclopedia that I'm doing from Jack's projected starters in the book. That actually will be coming out here shortly and get more details. I just don't have the I'm not allowed to say anything quite yet because I don't actually have the official date yet, but I know it's coming soon. The Prospect Encyclopedia, basically, if you see anybody with a star next to their name during this video, that means they have a scouting report in the Prospect Encyclopedia, and in order to make Washington's top 22 player list, those players have to be from the last 3 NFL draft classes, and they cannot have more than 12 regular season starts. So these are guys that are still gaining NFL starting experience, and these are guys that range from anywhere from superstars, potential superstars in the league, to core special team players. It's a great product. When that is released, I'll have more details on that, and I'd hope you guys go out and check it out because it's a great thing to read and get prepared for game days. But let's go ahead and get this going. Their quarterback this year will be Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know there was like, oh, is he going to battle out with Taylor Heineke in camp? No, it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick's team as we head into the season. And, you know, everybody knows Fitzmagic is one of the best quarterbacks you can watch as far as just enjoying the way he plays the game. He's not afraid to sling it and give his guy a shot to win a ball down the field and make those explosive chunk plays. As an NFL fan, you got to hope this is the year, because he talked about it last year, right? When he got pulled for Tua last year, it was it upset him a lot. He felt like he poured his heart and soul into that team, and he got it ripped away from him. And I don't, they're not going to do that with Taylor Heineke, because Taylor Heineke's not a first round pick like Tua is. But, obviously if Fitzpatrick was playing bad, that's a different story. So this is a chance for Fitzpatrick to actually have a team underneath that he can lead and potentially finally make it to the playoffs. Because that's the thing with Fitzpatrick. Everybody knows at the end of the day, he is a streaky quarterback. He'll have his hot moments. He can go hot for 6 weeks, and then he can get a cold streak where he's turning the ball over. So that is my concern with him as the quarterback of this team. And he's never made the playoffs during his whole career tenure. So you want to see him finally crack into the postseason and see what we can do with the Fitzmagic during his postseason run. Now, for people that watch previous videos, you do know I like to collect stats from the last 3 seasons since 2018. And Fitzpatrick did pop up there on a couple times. Nothing too notable, but taking a look at stats that he did pop up in the top 10 for me, he's actually tied for the 7th most rushing touchdowns among quarterbacks since 2018. He has 8 of them. And then he's got the 9th most yards per attempt at 7.87. So, like I said, he's going to give a shot for his guys to go down the field and win the ball, win 50-50 situations and all that type of stuff. And then as far as like a fantasy quarterback, yeah, I guess if you want to, but I don't want to depend on him for the whole season. You could put him in that category with like a Matt Ryan and a Kirk Cousins, where maybe you could start the season with Fitzpatrick, but then you want to draft maybe like a Justin Fields, a Trey Lance, Trevor, even though with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, those guys are going to start the season, but maybe you want to be patient and see if they're actually going to come out and deliver as rookies. He's one of those veteran quarterbacks you can draft to your team, maybe play for the first month, but then you're just hoping one of the younger quarterbacks that you got on your bench is eventually going to blossom and take over that starting role on your fantasy football team. But other than that, I'm excited to see what Fitzpatrick brings to this Washington football team, because if they can just get, average to above average play from him, they should be able to win a lot of games and potentially win this division and make it back to the postseason. So let's just keep it moving, though, to the running back position. Antonio Gibson, huge fan of that guy. I cannot believe how fast he came on last year. I gave him a glowing review in my scouting report when I was with Blitzalytics last year. I thought this guy had all-pro potential. I just was wondering like how he would be used, because he was kind of a running back / wide receiver at Memphis. They specifically stuck him at running back, and he has been blossoming. We saw him blow up in those games last year, and unfortunately his rookie season kind of got cut short because he was dealing with that turf toe injury that popped up around, I want to say around Thanksgiving last year, and that's why you see that star next to his name, because he only had 10 10 starts last year, so he's almost to that 12 career regular season starts. And I think he's going to continue to be the running back I kind of projected him to. Well, no, I didn't project him at running back. I said player, whatever they stick him at. I thought he could be an all-pro because of his explosive playmaking ability. And I think he's going to continue that path that he is on right now. And I like the chances that he's going to also add another element to this game, to this offense. I think they're going to use him more in that, because this is an offensive coordinator coming from Carolina. I think he's going to be more of that Christian McCaffrey this year, where you're going to see him used in a variety of ways, not only as a rusher, but in their passing attack as well. Because you can line him up in the slot and send him on a stream, and he can run back past D-backs with his speed. So I'm excited to see how they do use him. I think it's a big year for Antonio Gibson. I like the fact that they actually have improved their offensive line compared to last year. Obviously Scherf will be coming back healthy. They brought back Eric Flowers, who turned his career originally back into Washington when he switched to tackle to guard. We'll have to see if he is, up to par with his play. Sam Cosmi was a tackle I really liked in this past draft class out of Texas. He's going to be starting at the right tackle position. And they did sign Charles Leno Jr. from the Bears, so we'll have to see if his play still up to par. But either way, it should be a lot better of an offensive line compared to last year, which will open up holes for Antonio to carve up defenses with his legs. Now, keep in mind, though, they still have J.D. McKissick, who is used heavily in their passing attack last year. So he's still going to have his role. He still maybe will cut into some touches from Gibson. But I think at some point you got to acknowledge Gibson's talent compared to McKissick, and they got to let him dominate the touches out of the backfield. Yeah, Antonio Gibson's a guy I want on my roster. I think he's going second round in most drafts. Maybe some people football team fans are drafting him at the back end of the first round. But, if I can get Gibson with one of those top backs in the first round, I would love leaving my draft with two top tier backs like that. And Gibson can be an RB1 this season and finish as a top 10 fantasy running back. So again, I have a huge expectations for him and to have a good year too. Let's keep it moving to their wide receiver position. This is a unit that also obviously just got better this last season, or this past off season, with a couple different additions. Obviously, start with Terry Mclaurin. The guy's been electrifying with his route running ability, and he's been one of the more consistent players from Washington since he joined the team. He's entering year 3. You can go back and watch my first YouTube video that I posted on this channel, where I talk about year 3 wide receivers I want to target, and Terry McLaurin is one of them. I think he's going to have a huge year. I think you're going to see an uptick in targets, an uptick in production. And he's going to be able to feast better downfield, because Fitzmagic is going to take those shots when he's open down there. This is definitely going to be the best quarterback. This should be the best quarterback play that McLaurin's seen. So I'm expecting a huge year out of McLaurin, and I think the fact that they added Curtis Samuel and Diami Brown, that's going to also open up things. So Terry McLaurin's not seeing a lot of eyes from the secondary on him. So I think Terry McLaurin could be a wide receiver 1 this year in terms of fantasy. And he's going to have a blow-up year. And, I mean, a lot of people know him, but I think this is when he becomes more of even a bigger name nationally among households. And then, like I mentioned, they brought in Curtis Samuel from Carolina. He can be utilized in a lot of different ways. He'll probably be working the slot, but they can line him up. They can line him, and see, that's where they can get creative, right? Because Curtis Samuel can take rushes too. So think about it. You could go in shotgun, have Curtis Samuel and Antonio Gibson right next to Fitzpatrick, and then you can have your wide receivers out there, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas at the tight end. There's ways you can get really creative with this group, even including J.D. McKissick. So I'm very curious to see how they use Curtis Samuel. I think they can be very creative with this offense. I think you're going to see a lot of gadget plays in this offense, which is going to lead to other chunk plays, because once you run enough gadget plays, you can play action off of that and hit them deep. Yeah, I'm very, as you can tell, I'm very excited, at least what I'm thinking as far as my mind, how creative you can get with this skill set position. But yeah, I think Curtis Samuel is going to add a different element to their offense. I'm not sure if he's kind of to me, because I wonder if he's going to be seeing a consistent target load every week and workload every week. I wonder if he's, going to be a viable as a wide receiver 3 in fantasy. But for me, with Curtis Samuel, I think he's definitely worth a bench at the beginning of the year, and seeing how his role develops and see if he's worthy of a week in and week out play in fantasy. And Diami Brown's going to add a different element to their offense. He can stretch out the field with his speed, and I'm excited to see what he can bring as a rookie. And keep in mind too, because I know Curtis Samuel just got activated off the PUP list this morning, right before I started recording, so he's got to work his way back from that. But they also have Adam Humphries, who can work the slot. People might have forgot about him because his time in Tennessee was not memorable, but he was a guy that was lighting up the field with Ryan Fitzpatrick in Tampa Bay. So he's a guy to watch to see if he has a role. It sounds like he might be starting this year in the slot, so he's definitely going to have some snaps coming in. Steven Sims Jr. flashed some good things as a pro, and then Antonio Gandy-Golden's a guy I really enjoyed in last year's draft process. So I would like to see him maybe even work some snaps in the rotation. He can definitely be more of a red zone threat for them, because, and I mean, nothing against the starting wide receivers and Adam Humphries, but they're a little bit of shorter guys. So Antonio Gandy-Golden brings that size to the room. And then obviously Logan Thomas is a guy that's really impressed from last year. He beat my expectations from him switching from being a quarterback to the tight end. He's definitely already propelled himself into being one of the better tight ends in the league. And I think now that he's got Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think you're going to see his ascension as a player and continuing to blossom. And he's definitely one of those guys where I wouldn't say, like, as far as in fantasy, I don't know if I don't want to put him in that elite tier of fantasy tight ends with, like, Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller, but he's kind of getting there to the point where, I like Samuel, I like Diami Brown, but, like, I don't see, outside of Terry McLaurin, like, I don't see, like, him, like, any of the other guys taking away from his targets in the passing attack. I think he's going to have a heavy role. So to me, he's a tight end 1 in fantasy. So I mean, if you don't get one of those top 3 backs, if you don't want to maybe wait until the back, the double digit rounds to take a chance on a sleeper, Logan Thomas is a safe pick as a fantasy tight end this year. So I think he's going to have a very good year. And then when you take a look at the offensive line, like, I already kind of talked them up with the Antonio Gibson's part, but it's a better unit than last year. Again, we need to see this play out in the field. I know, like, Scherf dealt with his injuries. I want to say their center, Royler, if I said that right. I want to say he had to miss some time, maybe a couple games last year. So you just want to see them stay fully healthy and see how they gel this year. But it's in at least an average line. I think they can work their self to being above average, as long as, like, there's no drop off in play from a guy like Charles Leno Jr. and, like, Eric Flowers at left side of the line. Let's see how they play, and then I think you could consider them at least an average line this year. As this offense as a whole, it's going to be more dynamic. It's going to be more explosive this year underneath Fitzpatrick. Now, again, like, your biggest concern is this offense going to see any type of, like, inconsistency coming up? Because Fitzpatrick can have his moments where he's turning over the ball. And then also, too, like I mentioned, like, if injuries were to happen or something were to happen with that line where there's guys coming in and out of the lineup, is that going to affect the play of the offense? But, throwing out those two concerns, like, I think this has a potential to be a very good offense. I wouldn't say top 10. I'd say probably more of, top 10 to 15 offense. I mean, 10 to 15, not inside the top 10. But if everything hits right, maybe they can crack inside that and be one of the better offenses in the league. But it's going to be a pretty fun offense to watch overall. I'm just going to go ahead and keep this moving then. We're going to go to the defensive preview. Again, these are the projected starters pulled from the Prospect Encyclopedia. These are per Jack Dispo. Make sure you do go give Jack a follow at Jack_Dispo. Now, let's start with their, like how I always do. Let's start in the trenches and work my way out on this defense. This is the best defensive front in the NFL. This reminds me, well, I said this last year and it proved true. They end up making the playoffs, not as good as that San Francisco team, but this reminds me of the year that San Francisco made it to the playoffs, made it to the Super Bowl, because of how great that defensive front they had is. And this is a defensive front filled with all 4 our first round picks. Chase Young, we already saw him show that he's already in midseason form when he made that play to strip the ball out of Cam Newton's hands the other night during their preseason game. So Chase Young is going to have a huge year too. Daron Payne is just a straight up big bully, big bull that can take up space in the middle of the defense, and he's so strong. He's going to command a presence. Jonathan Allen just got paid, and rightfully so. So that, I mean, you could, even if you threw out the edge rushers on this team, you can argue Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen are the best like interior defensive lineman combo in the league alone. And then you're not even talking about Chase Young, their first round pick. And then Montez Sweat, who was showing really great things on film last year, chasing down quarterbacks because of his speed and his athleticism. I mean, it's a defensive front where you can't really, I mean, you're going to have to like max protect most of the time against these guys if you want to double team them, because if you want to maybe double team a Chase Young, guess what, that's going to open, Daron Payne can push back one offensive lineman with his strength alone. If you want to double team Daron Payne because how big he is, well, guess what, Chase Young is so great with his size, his length, and his technique that he's going to blow by a tackle like he did the other night. Same thing on the opposite side. You want to double team and Jonathan Allen, go, guess what? Montez Sweat's got the athleticism to bend the corner and chase down a quarterback. And it doesn't matter how mobile that quarterback is because Montez Sweat has great speed for his size. I'm so excited to see like what these guys do in year 2 together. This is the second year. When you get that time with that type of group, you're gonna gel. You're gonna be good friends, and I think they're gonna really like put it on their backs. Like, hey man, we're the best defensive front in the NFL. We're gonna go out and dominate every week and help our team win games, and it's gonna happen this year. And I cannot wait to see how they are utilized this year. And I mean, I don't know if I have to talk any more up. They're gonna be ballers, that defensive front. Now, my biggest concern when moving forward, like prior to this draft class or the draft happening, was I did feel like if there was a weak point of this defense, it was their linebacker group. Now, Cole Holcomb, in the games I watched last year, I thought he showed some promising things. So we want to see if he can carry that into this year. And not see a drop off in his play or just kind of been stagnant compared to last year. Now, the addition of Jamin Davis is what makes a difference and makes this defensive unit a lot better now that they have added him. He's a guy that he's got really good speed, right? And I'm already talking up their defensive front. So he could take advantage of all the presence of that defensive front that's going to command from the offensive line, and he's going to be able to fly over the field. He's going to be able to get tackle for losses. He's going to be able to end rushing plays, and he can utilize that too, where if those guys are commanding presence, you can use his speed, and he can be a quarterback spy as well when you're playing like a team like, I don't know, like Dak Prescott, for example, in the division, that he's a mobile quarterback, so he could sit back there and watch Dak. So his addition makes this unit even better. I already talked about John Bostic. Get him on the field for those first 2 downs, take him off, maybe go to a nickel package, and have have Jamin Davis and Holcomb as the 2 linebackers on the field during that time. So yeah, it's definitely a lot better. I want to say I'd say it was a below average unit. Jamin Davis makes it an average unit, and then it's just going to depend on does Jamin Davis actually deliver as a rookie, and can Cole Holcomb kind of build on some of those promising things I saw last year for the Washington defense. And now their secondary, man, it's going to be pretty good this year. William Jackson's I don't know if the word underrated is right. He's a very good cornerback. I don't think a lot of people know how great he was in Cincinnati, and he makes this defense a lot better. Kendall Fuller's a really good cornerback. Jimmy Moreland's sneakily one of the better nickelbacks in the league. So I love the combination of those 3. And then Cameron Curl showed some good things last year at the safety position. And then they're getting Landon Collins back from his injury last year. So I like what those guys can form, and the fact that they got the defensive front that they do, that you don't like have to depend on that. I mean, I think those guys could be good in coverage on their own, but you don't have to depend on those guys being as sticky as they need to most of the times, because that defensive front is going to be able to get pressure and get the ball out of the quarterback's hands more times than not at a quicker rate, around that 2 to 3 second time. So as long as those guys can stay healthy, you got one of the better secondaries in the league to go with the best defensive front in the league, and you got maybe a potential decent linebacker group. So you're talking about this is a top 10 to top. I mean, if everything hits right with that linebacker group, this can be a top 5 defensive group this year. And this group is why this team end up making the playoffs last year. It could be the reason why they'll make the playoffs this year, why they can win the division this year. And all they need is that offense to come together. Because if that offense can come together, be like a top 15 unit, you got one of the better teams in the league. Now, my biggest concern is their depth. I will say this now. I don't like their depth in the secondary group. I don't like their depth in the linebacker group. And you got a young group that can work in the rotation behind them on the defensive front. But I will say this, Matt Ioannidis, Ioannidis, I always butcher that guy's name. Sorry, Matt, but any other team that guy was on, if he wasn't on this team, that guy would start on their defensive front. So he's the one depth piece I really like in this group. I think he ended up getting hurt last year too. So they're going to have him be able to work in the rotation. So defensive front, I'm not really worried about because I like Matt Ioannidis. And then I think they got some guys that work in the rotation at times to give the other guys breathers. But then I get my concerns with the linebacker group in the secondary if injuries were to happen to that group. But overall, the top of that depth chart is great. Like I said, it could be a top 5 unit. Now, if I'm going to draft Washington to stream week 1, they do have the Chargers, so that I'm slightly concerned about that because I think that Chargers offense, if it's anything like we saw last year in year 1 with Justin Herbert, it can be an explosive offense. But they're still working on that offensive line. Sometimes you want to bet on maybe the sacks with your streaming defenses, and that obviously Washington brings that. And I will say this, Washington is one of those defenses I think are a high floor defense where even if they play a good offense, they can give you a good chunk amount of points this year. So, I mean, if there is no other juicy matchups I want to stream against, I could see myself picking up Washington just because I know they're going to have a very good defense this year. Now, moving on to my overall feelings on the Washington football team. Yeah, I think they're going to be a good team this year. I think they can build upon making the playoffs last year. I think you're already seeing Ron Rivera establish his culture from last year, and he can build upon that as well. And then you got an offense that should be at least around that top 15 range, as long as Ryan Fitzpatrick, has not completely fell off the edge at the end of his career. And if he could somewhat be more consistent this year, and not have not get too streaky, because that is my biggest concern is what if Fitzpatrick maybe comes out hot the first 3 weeks and then he goes on like a 6-week lull. I don't know if you can I don't know if making a switch of Taylor Heineke is going to save their season. So I think as far as their terms of their offensive success is going to be coming down to how consistent will Ryan Fitzpatrick be throughout the whole 17-week schedule, and then can their offensive line gel together and stay healthy throughout the year. If those two answers are a yes, Fitzpatrick is consistent, and yes, their offensive line can gel and be at least an average to above average line, then yeah, that can be a top 15 offense, especially with those skill position players that they have and how dynamic they can be if they can get creative with the guys I like Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel as well. And then their defense, like I just mentioned, I'm very high in that defensive front. Best defensive front in the league. The secondary is one of the better ones in the league. And then as long as Jermaine Davis can deliver as a rookie, you're talking about a unit that can be a top 5 defensive unit in the league. I have done all NFC East teams, and this is the best overall team in the NFC East in my opinion. So I think the NFC East is more likely going to come down to Washington and probably Dallas. Maybe if everything, we'll see about New York. We'll have to see about that. I'm gonna say probably between Dallas and Washington. And I mean, if you want to bet on the defense wins championships, you're probably going to want to lean towards Washington. We'll see if Ryan Fitzpatrick can finally make it to the postseason in his career. But either way, I think this is just going to be a very solid team. that will be in the mix to win the NFC East at the end of the year, potentially crack the playoffs either as a division winner or as a wild card team. So yeah, that is my preview for today, doing the Washington football team. I do appreciate you guys watching these videos, those that have watched not just this one, but all the other previous ones. If you haven't checked out my other team preview videos, please go check that out. My next team I will be doing is the Chicago Bears. I'm going to see if I can get that done later today. I got the Colts, as everybody knows, I am a Colts fan, so the Colts got their first preseason game on here later today, so I am going to be watching that. I'm going to try to pump out the script for the Chicago Bears and get that recorded at some point today. So you probably will be seeing the Chicago Bears preview video come out, but that is the next team I'm doing. I do want to ask you guys, if you did like this video, please hit the like button. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to, it's my goal to get to that 100 subscribers, hopefully by the time the NFL season kicks off. Go tell a friend to check it out. But other than that, I'll see you guys on the Chicago preview video, which I hope to get done later today. See you guys.